Oh, hey everyone. Good morning. I'm Professor Shane Snipes. Thanks so much for being here with me today. It's always nice to have folks here with me. And we're in a really interesting place and time in the world right now. So it's really great to have that kind of view in the world and to sort of see how things are emerging. So I feel like this program that we have here at BMCC, the Borough of Manhattan Community College, is called Citizen Entrepreneur Explorers Program. It's one of those programs where students can get in there, get out into their communities and get some really fascinating, wonderful things done in the world. They can actually make change. So this is not like a regular assignment. Those of you folks who are faculty or students and excited about doing this type of work, we're here for you. So this is one of our first webinars. We're going to be talking about step one of the Citizen Entrepreneur Explorers Program. We call it CEEP, C-E-E-P. And our CEEP program, I have a special guest here with me today, Raymond Luo, who is actually the person who's been working with students like myself, but like right there in the trenches, so to speak, getting to know what students' research is, how research works, and where it doesn't work. He's sort of making it feel like, wow, like a teammate. Like you've been there through all of this stuff, Raymond. And I just wanted to say thank you again for all your efforts and energy.
Okay, thanks, Professor, for the introduction. I'm really excited to talk today with you about research. I'm currently a master's student at NYU. I study financial engineering, and working with the students over the last couple of semesters has been great. I'm currently in my program for financial engineering because I'm really interested in research and the qualitative and the quantitative aspects. Financial engineering is kind of unique in the sense that you kind of take really quantitative skills to try and capture through research a lot of qualitative behaviors in the stock markets and how people's behavioral and perceptions of the stock markets can affect prices.
That's really cool. Yeah. And it's fascinating too. Once you meet other people who are really into research, you realize our lives are all overlapping because we all start from the same kind of basic step, which we're going to go over today. So let's put up there what we're planning to cover for today's webinar. You're going to see here that we're actually going to be talking about what is a research question and how to build one that is good. There are good and there are bad research questions. Not to say bad is like awful, just that they're not so useful to what people are looking for or to helping answer a problem or a question that's out there in the universe. So we want to make sure that people who want to do this type of work come up with a great question from the very beginning. What I would say to you, Raymond, is when you're talking about the basics of where to begin, we've got all this stuff out there in the world, all these people saying like research is this, research is that, but it's really fundamental if you think about it and really straightforward. Describe a little bit for me, like what is that research question?
Okay, so, sorry, give me a second. Yeah, so according to this paper by Karen Matzik about how to write a good research question, the research question is kind of like a question that a research project sets out to answer. It's a combination of quantitative and qualitative aspects, and answering the question requires a lot of data collection and analysis. Now, this is kind of like quite different from what students are normally used to when it comes to like writing a paper, an analytical paper to like write an answer, because it's not an opinion piece. It's not just stating the facts. It's a lot of you going out into the world, into your community, especially in this program for CEEP, to go into your local communities to try to find the answers to the problems you seek. Now, setting up the problem is really important because in a sense, you have to set up your question in a way that's very clear, that's clear direction for what type of knowledge it's looking for, what type of topic you're looking at. So the question itself has to usually be rather narrow and specific. While students try to get the question in one try, it's actually kind of an iterative process where you have to keep on trying to turn it out and refine it to become more clear and more directional.
Yeah, exactly. And what I find too is oftentimes the research question is it's just a starting point. It's not actually like you think a lot of people think like, oh, I came up with my question. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be exactly the way it should be. And it never is. Like no research question is ever right the first time you write it because you shape it based on all these things that you uncover, dialoguing with other students, talking to the professor, talking to the mentors, and getting to know what you're trying to accomplish and what you're really trying to uncover in your neighborhood. And when you go through that process of walking through the steps, similar to what you said, Raymond, it's going to you might think you're heading this direction, but in the very beginning, if you change your question just a little bit, you're going to head over here all of a sudden. So that's what's fascinating about research too, is you can uncover really interesting things. I'd also say you can narrow down your topics of interest based on your own passions. So when you're going out into the neighborhood, going out to the community, do that, like get engaged in that way. And there are a lot of topics in the world that you could be interested in. You might be interested in kayaking, you might be interested in food, you might be interested in all these different things. Believe it or not, with CEEP, everything, any subject, any topic, any hobby probably has some entrepreneurial component behind it. And so we can uncover different aspects of what entrepreneurship might be like in your neighborhood when you're using the CEEP program to assess it.
Yeah, and it's really important to kind of take into consideration two main things during the formulation of your research. For first of which is, what are the main issues faced by the problem you have? And the second one is, what are the knowns and unknowns of the topic? When you have these two things laid out, it's a lot easier for you to set up the construction of your research topic.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. When you talk about knowns and unknowns, um, it sounds like people are looking for something that they don't know they're looking for yet. And I, for CEEP, the way I've always felt like this program should run is go and look for something obvious and then ask a not obvious question about it. All right. So go and find something that you're like really intrigued by happening in your community that's related to entrepreneurship. And then once you find that thing and you have a question, work on that question just a little bit more to go either a little bit deeper, a little bit, in a different direction. So could you tell me about how you've seen some of our students and their interests kind of convert into really good research questions?
Yeah, there's been a couple of really good examples actually. So one of the main topics of interest that a lot of our students have is on restaurants. And given COVID, a lot of restaurants kind of got hit really hard. There's been a lot of changes in policies which have affected restaurants. So naturally, a number of students came up to me with expressing interest in researching restaurants. Now, given COVID, that already gives us a certain level of context, which already narrows the questions down. So that's like the first step. And then I gave feedback to the students that they might want to narrow it down some more and look at specific aspects of restaurants to try to like refine and create more context to the problem. This could be from things like changes in prices, changes in locations, their modes of service through orders and deliveries. And one student refined his topic to focus on the changes in a restaurant's menus. This could be like how the menus are given, what items are on, the number of items on the menu. And by looking at these aspects, he had a rather refined question to be looking at for his research topic.
Yeah, and as soon as you get a nice refinement of that question, your research becomes a little bit easier because you're not trying to answer some giant question like how restaurants changed during COVID. Like that's too big. Like you don't know what you're looking for. Change is this giant amorphous blob. But when you say change is related to menus, now all of a sudden you have something to look at. And I really like that particular example that you gave. How about something that didn't work so well?
Yeah, so kind of in like the similar aspect in the opposite direction, a lot of students didn't really narrow it down in the same way that I mentioned before. So a very general topic that kind of showed up a couple of times was how have restaurants been performing? Now, this isn't really a question by itself. Sometimes it could be just answered by yes, it's very good, or no, it's very bad. And it's rather broad, not very narrow enough. There's not enough context to look at. It's hard to begin your research, and it's really hard to find out how you want to research this topic. Um, on the other hand, a lot of topics that came to me from students were research topics that tend to be really good research topics in general, but maybe not in the scope of entrepreneurship. These problems are problems that are a bit too general and too, I mean, they're too large for a student just to research from their own communities. I had one student who suggested looking at US repatriations to the Liberian economy, which is a great topic that a lot of economists study, but it's a lot hard to find the answers from your own neighborhood. These are questions that can't be answered just by talking to people on the streets.
Yeah, yeah. And what's special about CEEP is that we are telling students and anyone who's engaged in the program, go to your neighborhood, go to your blocks, go to your communities and talk to the people there. Uncovering something so local and so relevant to where you actually are at this moment kind of transforms what we're thinking about when it comes to entrepreneurial thinking, entrepreneurial actions, our communities, what we believe we can have an impact on. And so the whole process of what we are and how we're doing it is we want students to kind of help transform their communities with these tiny little questions about what entrepreneurship is. I feel like right now in our society, so many people are kind of clamoring for this, be your own boss. I want to have my own future. I want to control my own destiny, all of those kinds of pieces. And it's super important to wrap that up in something where you're seeing people who are actually trying to do that. And you're looking at those things, not just necessarily looking at, well, I have a business idea, so I'm going to study that. Take a step back and look at what other people are doing first. That's always my recommendation. So that's what CEEP's all about. Please visit our website, which is citizenpreneurs.com, right there on the screen. So that would be great to get more information about us. We do have a lot more things coming though, right, Raymond? We have like a few more steps coming. He outlined 3 of those steps that we'll be covering coming up soon. And Raymond, walk us through that.
Yeah, so our webinar schedule would be something like 3 parts. This is the first of the 3 parts. So today we've been talking about the importance of the research question and how we'll be navigating it. The next 2 webinars we're kind of looking at are the design of the methodologies to trying to answer the research questions we come up with today. And then the last part will be the various ways of taking in the information you gather and how to analyze it to create more depth for the conclusions.
That's great. Excellent. So everyone, please stop by, check out citizenpreneurs.com, where you can get lots more information if you're faculty, if you're a school, if you're actually a student who's intrigued by entrepreneurship in your own neighborhoods. You can run this type of project. You can talk to your teachers if you're in high school or middle school, wherever, if you've run across this video. It is an exciting topic, and we really want folks to sort of take on entrepreneurship with some easy steps that they can succeed with. Raymond, any closing words for us?
No, that's pretty much for me.
That's awesome. Thanks everyone for all that you're doing out there in the world. If you're looking at entrepreneurship, if you're excited about starting something new, if you're just curious, we're always here for you. So stop by BMCC Entrepreneurship